challenge. You can't, oh yeah, they're not on the screen. Gives folks a lot of challenge. And so what I have is I did a little PowerPoint for you. It's a very short one. And we'll go over some of the basic principles. And what I would like to do is if you have questions, use the raise your hand icon on the screen. And at the end, we'll have time for more questions as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen if I can get my screen. Sorry, my cursor is not behaving. I need you to let me share my screen though, Kathy.
Okay, so let's see.
Right now.
Multiple participants or one participant can share at a time. It doesn't really say pass it. It just kind of, let's see. Share screen, share sound. Nope, we don't want to do that. Advanced. Host only. Oh, all participants. Aha, there's a button. Who can start sharing when someone else is sharing? All participants. Okay, so that may work. Now, can you try it?
Okay, yep.
Yeah. We see your face and your face twice. Okay, good.
Okay, now you should not see, well, you may see the face on the side, but not
now we
all.
See the slide.
There it is. Got it.
So we're going to talk about each project finances. And I'm going to just say this is not a polished PowerPoint. It is a Dawn needed to put something down to remind herself what topic she wanted to cover. But I will send it to you later, Kathy, so you have it for reference and you'll know what topics we have. And you can certainly hand it out to the boys so that they know as well.
Good.
Yeah.
And yes, it is a subject that makes me like a little nervous. I don't know why.
The who is paying? The who is paying is the one that makes me nervous.
Yeah, right. Oh, and you know what? I can start this conversation off by saying I did have a kind of a nightmare with Randy's Eagle project and I was a single mom at the time. And I went to that particular church and they said, and I should have talked to Dawn about it, but I didn't. And they said, well, by the time everything gets to us, it's always 100% funded. And I wanted them to like do a fundraiser like they had done for Dale's project. And they said, you know, he was just really kind of bullyish and was like, by the time it gets to us, it's usually 100% funded. And I was like, okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's the challenge. The scout is the one who is financially responsible for the project through your personal funds. I don't know if you realize the script account is actually not truly authorized by scouting, even though everyone uses one. Just going to put that there. Script account, donations from family and friends, and we're going to go into more detail about what we mean by donations by family and friends and fundraisers. However, the beneficiary may be able to provide some funding, and that's a question that you want your scout to be doing. Like if they've got a project, I just had a scout that was building some pig enclosure and his funds were limited, but when he spoke with his beneficiary, he did not first say, I'm going to try to do 2 of these, but if I only have the funds for 1, is that okay? You want to bring any funding limitations up in the beginning. So that way your beneficiary is not expecting more than what you can provide because of limitations on your financial status. And also so that there's a little bit of flexibility, because when the beneficiary signs off that, yes, this is the project we want to do, if you said, I'm going to build you 17 park benches and you only have the funds for 3, well, you have to go back to that beneficiary, rediscuss it, and get that signature to say, okay, this is truly acceptable, because the beneficiary is expecting something. If you cut that project because of funding, well, then that leaves a bad taste in their mouth. And they go, I don't want to deal with scouts, because a scout is honest, scout is trustworthy. So you need to set your expectations. So you need to know what the cost is of the items, how many you're doing, where the expenses are going to be. And that's where we talk about creating a budget. It's in proposal page F and plan page C and D of the Eagle workbook. A lot of scouts, when they initially do their project, I'm going to share a different screen if I can get it. Do not do the project completely. Now, are you seeing my second screen? Or are you still seeing the PowerPoint one or nothing?
Still the PowerPoint.
Okay. Great. Let me just double check. Sorry, I'm trying to share a new screen here. Here we go. Okay, share this one. Okay, I got to get my glasses on for this one too. So when they're doing it, there's two sections for them to do it. And this is your Eagle project, your beginning project, your plan, and your proposal. Your proposal is what you bring to the district representative, but it also is helpful to have that plan, looking over all this paperwork, because it gives you a chance to record and keep track. Because here you're planning your materials. What do you need? No, you don't need to have your exact amounts, but you kind of want to know a close estimate, because how are you going to know what you need to raise for money if you don't do that? And so you have your preliminary cost estimates. And this is why when we're asking you questions during the review board, and we say, okay, how much did you figure out? How many screws do you think you're going to use? How many nails? Did you include your other expenses like donuts and pizza? And I can't tell you how many scouts have gone over budget because they spent so much money on food and drinks, and they just never thought about the cost of that. They planned out materials and supplies, they borrowed tools, and then they ran over 50 bucks, 100 bucks, and they didn't have that money. So your preliminary cost estimate is where you're doing that, and you're going to be asked questions, and maybe your district representative is going to say, I would like you to look a little bit more on your costs. You don't seem to have your details. That's when you go down and you come back with it, and you'll be in your project plan. When you're in this project plan, here's where you're breaking it down in your costs. It's your plan. You haven't bought your supplies. It is your plan. Mm-hmm. Now you've already gotten your beneficiary to sign off. So let's hope your budget is close to what your plan is. That's why when you're doing the proposal, you need to have an accurate guess. You need to do a very educated guess with it. And one of the reasons we ask all those details is to go through that and say, all right, let's see, what do we need? What's the materials? We'll prompt your questions. The Eagle coaches, also, when you're going over the project, come up with it, because a lot of times you're going to know materials that the scout may not be thinking of. Trash bags. If they're building something, are they going to have to put it on a surface? Are they going to need extra materials for that? So that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. So that's what we're talking about with proposal page F and plan page C and D. It's a pain in the neck, I'm not going to deny it, but the more planning you do and have those details, you're being prepared. And then you're not having to run out of money and say, where is the funding going to come for this? Mm-hmm. I will say this much. Most of the Eagle Scouts that come to me, when we do the review, we talk about costs and estimates. And then I usually sit on their Eagle board of review. And I would say 90% of them are 50% over budget. And if you were running a business and you were 50% over budget, you would not get hired and you would not be contracted again. So important to be fiscally responsible. And when you're creating this budget, there's a the personal management merit badge. One of the few cases where you're allowed to double dip, because you create a budget for a major purchase. Your major purchase can be your Eagle project. It's a perfect example and way of working those two merit badges together, because often that merit badge has not yet been, that's one of the last ones that a lot of people get. So it's a good way to use that merit badge and actually have it be for something that you really need to have a budget for, and it will help you think through it all. Yeah.
I forgot about that. That's a good tip.
Mm-hmm. So the Eagle project itself, it can't be a fundraiser alone. That is one thing always to remember. I'm trying to shrink down my PowerPoint screen a little bit, so bear with me, because it is a little too big on my screen right now, and I can't see it as easily, so bear with me. Okay. You can't see my headings. So what BSA says about fundraising for Eagle Scout projects. Fundraising is only able to be done for securing materials or otherwise facilitating a project. You cannot do a fundraiser for your Eagle project. Like, you cannot raise funds for a rescue. You cannot raise the money for the church to build a new addition. That is not something that you can do. It's only so you can afford the materials for your actual project. And also, when we say fundraising, it also covers donations. Like, if you're fundraising, like you want to get people to bring in a whole bunch of, you're trying to get a business to donate to you supplies, it kind of encompasses that as well. When you're fundraising for the project, it's in the beneficiary's name, not the Scout's name, because any funds that are raised are the beneficiaries, up to the beneficiary's discretion on how it's going to be spent. Now, it should be for your Eagle project, but again, you're raising funds. That money is the beneficiary's money. It is not your money, the Scout. It is the beneficiary's. Yes.
Well, my son is doing something for an Houston Humane Society.
Mm-hmm.
So should their name show up in there? I mean, because what happens if he doesn't collect enough money and he has to switch? That cannot be correct. Let's say that he needs $3,000 to build this big, nice.
But see, you're telling the donors the money is going for the project for the Houston Humane Society. Okay. So the donors are donating to the Houston Humane Society. They're not donating to him. They're donating for that project. And so that's why when you're doing it, you wouldn't be fundraising without first having approval for this project.
Okay.
You're doing your tentative plans and trying to see where ahead of time you can be thinking about, where am I going to get the funds? But if you're raising the money, no, it goes for that. So when you go to the district review board, we also ask these questions because one of our guidelines is that we're supposed to make sure that the Eagle can accomplish this project. Okay. Financial limitations are one of the things.
But I mean, let's say that my son has to GoFundMe. He can do that and put the name of that organization or not?
Funds are being raised for that organization.
Okay.
Yeah, because they are. Because if he doesn't have enough money to finish his project, that money is going to that organization.
Anyway,
it's not going to him. And he may need to do a whole new fundraiser if he can't do it, but he just made money for them. So yay. Okay. But it is their funds.
How much transparency does one need to have with the beneficiary, with the benefactor?
You mean as far as like I spent $7 on wood, or what do you mean by that?
Well, during the fundraiser, like a GoFundMe, do they need approval from the beneficiary to do that?
Yes.
And do they need to be very transparent about the accounting?
It's the conversation with the beneficiary. What do they want from you? This is a conversation because gift documentation receipts for donors, because donors want receipts to say I donated, they're coming from the project beneficiary. They're not coming from Scouts US BSA. Those again are donations to the beneficiary. So they're the ones who need to be aware. They're the ones who need to make sure, however they want to do it. So you do need to discuss, if I'm going to do a GoFundMe for my beneficiary, they need to know I'm doing a GoFundMe with their name.
Okay. Right.
The Houston Humane Society. Yeah.
Did you have another question? Your hand is still up, or did you?
No, I'm sorry.
Make sure.
Hi, this is Patience, John's mom.
Yes.
So I'm trying to understand, in terms of raising the funds using in the name of the benefactor or beneficiary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So say for example, if our project is, maybe we've done a budget and when we have like a total of $500, mm-hmm. Raised in the name of benefactor, and at the end of the day, we have not exhausted all of the 500.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to the balance?
So, and you're all asking questions that are going to come up a little further, but those funds, you first ask the donors, did they want the money back?
Okay.
And then you ask the beneficiary, what do you want to do with this? Same with any leftover materials. So if you got delivered to you a cord of wood to build something and you didn't use it all, the same thing. If it was donated, you ask whoever donated it first, and then you ask the beneficiary, what do you wish to do with this? Then it never goes back to the scout. It never goes personally back to the scout.
Okay.
Never. It's never back to them. So,
and if they don't want it, what happens? Where do we take them to? If we have leftover materials and
so it's the beneficiary's decision.
Okay.
It's the beneficiary. So again, if the materials are donated or if they're bought, it's two separate things. So if materials are donated to you, you go back to whoever donated to you first. And this is where you ask these questions ahead of time. So if someone is donating materials, you can say, look, we may have extras. Is it okay if we give it to the beneficiary or to some other organization in need? If they say yes, great. You've checked a box to make it easy. And then you still have to ask the beneficiary, because again, all materials donated for this project are for that beneficiary. But then you're not going back and forth, and you're having the beneficiary sign off at the end. So you'll have that final conversation with them as far as goods and whatnot, and have a resource. If you think that there's like building materials, we'll mention the resale shop that is in Houston. There's a few of them where you can go buy it, and it's used. Habitat for Humanity has one, and they run it to raise funds. Maybe that's a good place to go donate stuff. So, but you want to have these conversations ahead of time. People will ask you for receipts. They will ask you for donation documents. You need to find out from your beneficiary, how am I, what do we do? Do I send the names to you at the end of the project in an email? Do you want a typewritten list? Would you like it sent to you in smoke signals? Whatever way you want to find out from them. And people may not want a receipt either. Sometimes they come back later on and say, oh, I needed a receipt. And you go, that was 7 months ago. Or sometimes you don't. So it just depends. A lot of people don't care, but I have had folks I know with my sons that most everyone's like, oh, great, super. And then one person was like, I need a receipt for that. Okay, we'll get you a receipt. Okay. So if your money, so this is donation. So if the money's coming from your troop script account, where you notice how we say project funds, holding project funds, because we can't officially say script account. It's not officially recognized accounts, but I know most troops have them. Your unit, sometimes people will write a check if you're raising money and they'll just write it to the troop. If that happens, then the troop can hold it, and then they'll turn the money over to the project beneficiary. Doesn't happen very often, but it can be done. If the money is in your script account, the great thing about a script account, a lot of people don't realize, is that if they've raised money, they sold popcorn, mulch, wreaths, whatever it may be, and they have that money. Well, that money is your scouts to use on scout events, a scout expenses. And the Eagle Scout project counts as a scout expense. So you just submit your receipt and get it, and you're not limited as far as that goes, which is kind of nice, because a lot of times by that end, a lot of them are coming up against their deadline for their 18th birthdays, and they're not going to be with the units much longer, and let's get that. Any contracts that are signed. Some HOAs ask a contract to be signed. Some other businesses will do as well, some churches. They cannot reference the BSA, your local council, the unit's chartered organization. So it's going to be by an adult acting as an individual, usually a parent. Because for financial responsibility, BSA is not responsible for your project. And I know one scout once did a whole swing set and had to get delivery and all this stuff. And someone adult had to be responsible for it. The scout could not be. We at BSA know that they're very capable, but legally they're still under 18. So we have to have adults being responsible for that. If fundraising efforts are going to begin if you know that you need funds 2 weeks before the fundraising, at least 2 weeks before the fundraising event, efforts begin. The Eagle Scout candidate should complete the Eagle Scout Service Project fundraising application. And this is submitted to our local council for approval. And let me find it so I can show it to you. Bear with me. Nope, not that one. Where is it? Let's see.
I think that would go to Andrea, right? Go through.
No, it does not.
It goes straight to council.
I'll tell you in a second. I'll bring it to you in just a minute.
Okay.
I'm trying to bring up that screen that will not come up, so I will not be able to show it to you because it is being. Oh, there it is. Okay.
But it's in the workbook.
It is. So your Eagle Project fundraiser, but I wanted to make sure I could show it to y'all. And can you see it on your screen? The Eagle Scout Service Project fundraiser. Oh, okay. It looks very familiar. You'll see though. You've got the name of your beneficiary and everything, how the funds will be raised, the projected date, just like your Eagle project. Sometimes that date is not exactly how much you expect to raise. So even though you're raising money, say you're having a bake sale, you still have to give an estimate because you are aiming for a certain amount of money that you need to raise. This is part of your planning. If you're asking for materials, again, how you'll do it, will you do it? So I know many of you have heard me say, you're not going to go to Home Depot and ask for donations. This is why, because if people or companies will be asked for donations of money, materials, supplies, or tools, how will this be done? If you go in and say, hi, I have an Eagle project that I'm working on. I wanted to know what the best price or what would be available here for me. You're not asking for the donation, then you don't have to fill out the form. If you're going purposely to ask, I need to do bricks, I need stone work for a walkway I'm doing, and you're going to do it, you are supposed to complete one of these. Sometimes people will hey, I'm going to ask someone's dad, said, I can go ask at work. I can ask a group of folks for funds. This is where you would fill out the form and ask, this is what we're going to do, asking for donations of money straight, how you're going to do it. Notice approvals on this one though. Your beneficiary has to sign it. Another document, so there may be delays, and that's why we say at least 2 weeks before, because you have to get this submitted. Unit leader, and then council will send this back to you.
So we drop it off at council?
No, I'm going to get to it. It's in a couple.
Sorry.
It's the next page. Well, not, but when and where you don't need it. So if you don't need an application. If you only involves contributions from your unit, project beneficiary, because they may say, oh, we've got $300 set aside for this project that we're going to put towards it. Eagle Scout candidates, parents and relatives, units, chartered org, or parents and members in the unit. John, you have a question?
Yes. I'm trying to also understand where, if understand the donation aspect of it, you know, if, for instance, a parent of the Eagle Scout has some amount of money to donate, where does that come in?
Well, right here, Eagle Scout candidates, parents and relatives, you don't need a fundraising application.
Okay.
So that's great. Parents or members in the unit, you don't need an application. Parents, co-workers, you would need an application. My neighbor down the street, you would need an application.
Okay.
Okay. So from any source not listed above, you will need an application for that. Now, some councils will say you don't need it for under a certain dollar value. Our council does not have that policy set in place. So, and here we go. Some say, and sometimes they set like certain ones like car washes or bake sales, you don't need one. or less than 500. Our councils, there's certain things that they're like, oh, you don't really need one. That's not how we're going to do it though, because they don't have anything set in stone. Here's where you submit it. So you would fill out that PDF and you send it. I would do Eagle Projects at shac.org, or you can do 576 Eagle Project Fundraising at scouting.org. Personally, I'd put both of them in the email chain because I don't know who's right. And because you got to have 2 people, the scouts got to have 2 adults included. So that would be your 2 adults and your parent, hopefully. So if you're not sure about a fundraising question, if you're like, I don't know if I need it, I'm only getting $50 for this. It's a donation from my next door neighbor who's been like family forever. You can send them and shoot them an email. But I will say this much, that email, this application, it's a quick turnaround. It's like within a week's time. So they're even 2 days, but they're really quick about the turnaround on it. So yes, it delays your project a little bit, but there is a very quick turnaround. One thing to realize when you're asking for donations, if you are asking for supplies, example of that crushed stone to build your project or whatever, or mulch for that playground, a lot of businesses will require a tax letter, the 501c, proof of a 501c. You are not getting one from BSA. You're getting it from your beneficiary. So that way, when they're making that charitable tax donation, it is not to BSA, it is to the beneficiary. And that's that tax letter as well, if they're asking for it. As a reminder, any donations you receive, a scout is courteous. You should always follow up with a thank you note, always. Or if they say no, we always say thank you for your time. Where you're going to find your necessary forms for this is in the Eagle Scout Project fundraising application, is page 17 of that project workplace, or it was when I looked at it. It might not be, but it was before. If you look at the Navigating the Eagle Scout Service project, that is also in your application. And you should be showing it to you because you are signing a form that you did show. I'm trying to find, yeah. Or not. Navigating the Eagle Scout project. This is in your Eagle application, and it is actually a question. Did you show this to your beneficiary? In it, it says what the limitations are for your permits, permissions, authorizations, and funding on it. And it says if your organization is not allowed to retain leftover funds, you will designate a charity to receive them or turn them over to the Scouts unit. Not to the Scout, but they can donate back to the Scouts unit. So this is supposed to be shown to the beneficiary as well. It's part of one of the questions. Did you do this? All the Scouts say yes. And then when you ask them, what is it? They go, I don't know. So keep that in mind. And then lost my PowerPoint for a second there. So one of the things that a lot of Scouts have difficulty with is the donation request letters. They have a lot of trouble wording, like they want to get a donation or they want to send out to their family and friends how to ask for it. You can look up examples on Google, Pinterest, Ask Your Unit, and my new favorite, ChatGPT. And I'm going to tell you about ChatGPT. I love it. I don't know if you're familiar with it. So up here is the actual website. I have an account. You'll have to log in. You'll have to sign up for an account. And it's free. The great thing is, if you want to provide specific details, specific to your project goals for your Eagle project, and it'll write it. So I did a request, and I'm going to bring up that page. I love this. Where are we? Give me one moment. Gotta find the right. There we go. Okay, so this is Chat OpenIA. This is it, and I had them. I put in those little details that I said. my thing was supporting Eagle Project to benefit Houston Homeless Coalition. And it wrote an entire letter for me. Now, obviously, I'd have to look through it. Now I can regenerate the response. If I didn't like that, it was example of request for donations to support Eagle Project for Houston Homeless Coalition. Well, I didn't like that one, so I'm gonna have them rewrite it. Oh, well, fiddle. I've been signed out too long. So it is a really useful tool, especially for folks who have trouble just coming up, because that's one thing that a lot of my scouts have said, is that I don't know what to say. You can use that to help you say what you need to say.
Cool.
It's also useful for a lot of other stuff too, but I won't get into that one. In-person requests. So
you can actually feed your style, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what you'll exactly, because it pulls from the web. So you have to look at it and make sure. And they put up a few things that I was like, oh, you pulled from the Houston Homeless Coalition's website, because I see what you wrote in there. So
but the problem now, that is being criticized, because they say now all the kids can have wonderful college essays.
I know. Yeah.
I've seen some professors say yay or nay on that one, but good or bad. But you have to put in the information that you want to bring it out. So, but it's helpful for thank you letters as well. Request and thank you letters. In-person request. If you are going to ask for donations in person, schedule the appointment. Don't just walk into a store. Call ahead of time, especially like with Lowe's and Home Depot. There's certain times of the week that are busier, or they're in meetings. Save yourself, save the parent who's driving you a trip, schedule an appointment. You can do it by phone, email, even look online. Arrive in your full class A's. Have a one-page explanation of your project. And that's where that chat GPI can also come and help, because when you want to just explain my project, but you got to give some details, and some people put too many words. You can say it, explain it in bullet format, and it'll help lay it out for you, which may be a little easier when trying to communicate. You want that piece of paper so that you can give it to them and they can reference it. So maybe they have to ask someone else. Make sure it has all your project, what you're looking for, and your contact information. If you're asking for a large donation of supplies, well, you're not going to necessarily get that answer right away. They may have to go up the chain a little bit. If you provide the material, you know your message will be translated properly and given as you want it to be. Not some scout came in and asked for donations, and I told them to come back a different day. Just for their stuff. Have the workbook ready so you have the details. So if they do say, well, let's, you go into somewhere and you're asking to see what the best deal is, not asking for donation, the best deal. They want to know what you need. And if you've got the details done, if you've done your project planning and you're like, I need 8 boxes of size 6D wood deck screws, waterproof, galvanized, they'll go, okay, we have this, or we don't have this, or what type of wood, because they're going to say, well, what type of wood do you need? What do you need for whatever? And you can't answer the question. Well, you're not prepared. And that's part of your planning. Again, always being courteous, be polite, say thank you, even if nothing is given, because you are representing scouting when you're going out and doing this. So keep that in mind on the phone or what have you. It helps if you're calling on the phone and you're asking, if you're not in person, on phone, have a script ready, written down what you're going to ask, so that way you are covering all your basics. Leftover funds materials, we did cover most of this already. You check in with your donor first. And again, you're showing them that form first to ask that when you're going to meeting with them, which says, ask the beneficiary what they're going to do with those materials. Donor first, do they want to keep their money or not? If you overraise, I don't think I've ever had anyone overraise money. I'm just going to say that. Second, you check with the beneficiary, and then you must follow the donor beneficiary's instructions for those materials. Any questions?
So I guess when they're trying to estimate their cost, and they're considering, everything like every material, how it's going to be treated. Is it going to be stained or weatherproofed or painted, and every little bolt and everything? And do they need to consider like a buffer amount?
Yes, they probably should, because look at wood costs that went up exponentially. A lot of Eagle Scouts ran short of funds because of that. And so you do want to think about overrun. Where might you have overrun? And we do, again, on the district board, we ask those questions like, okay, what happens, you know, how many screws? Well, how many do you think you're going to use? How many do you think are going to get bent or lost? You know, you do want to, you do want to have that in mind, but you don't want to do excessively because you don't want to raise too many funds. That's not proper planning either. It's just like when you're budgeting for your home or budgeting for a business. You don't want to overestimate because then the correct funds aren't being gathered, and you don't want to underestimate. Yes. You're on mute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I again, my son is planning to do something that I might agree or disagree, but he wants to do like a something to cover in the Houston Humane Society, you know, a place for people to stand without protecting them from the sun. So the beneficiary didn't explain anything. They just said, oh, as long as we could have a nice area where they can have some shade, it'll be fine.
Yep.
That means that he has options.
Yes,
and
it does.
Yeah, he was checking. The best option is a nice canopy type made of wood. You just go and anchor that concrete, you know, and it's a nice, clean, and against the winds of 150 whatever miles per hour. But that is $4,000. So if he doesn't raise that money, he will have to downgrade that project. So can he do like a conditional proposal?
Yes. So he can say,
raising?
depending on what I raise, these are the options I'm looking at, and have a variety to make sure that the Humane Society is open to all of those. It sounds like they are, but over communication is always better than under communication when it comes to that sort of thing. Yeah, that's a good amount of money. And so, yeah, and I know it's funny because we just built them. I volunteer at Corridor Rescue, a dog rescue, and we just built shelters. We just had folks come out, and we've looked on a whole bunch of different ones, and we have a whole bunch of different prices. So I totally know what you're talking about. But yes, definitely let them know, look, if I raise this amount of money, I'm going to be able to do this style. If I raise this amount, I'm going to be able to do this style. And if I raise this amount, I'll do this style. Are all of those satisfactory? Yes.
Okay.
So is that a kit you're looking at, like something online?
Yeah, he's been looking at different, you know, like
kit,
canopies, I guess is the name. I've forgotten that he used.
Yep. And if you choose to buy the wood separate from the canopy instead of the whole stand, you can sometimes get it at a lower price. Again, I only know because I literally have been pricing those out for our rescue and looking at them ourselves.
My concern is that neither my husband and I are civil engineers, even though somebody's.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Well, Blair volunteered, but my main thing is that, of course, the first question is how are you going to anchor them? And Juan Carlos says, oh, they don't need anchor. That tells me that we need to review it. I think you asked the question in the last. So my concern is that $4,000 is a lot of money, and of course the other ones are just the poles, and you can have like a tarp type of thing. You know, that's another way.
Yep, they're a lot cheaper. Huh? Yep, that's what we went with.
Yeah, and it's got to be like, well, how deep does that pole have to be buried?
Those poles can be attached to fences and what have you. They don't have to necessarily be put into the ground.
Well, the one of the problems, this one is in the middle of nowhere. I mean,
you are stuck. Yes.
Yeah. So that's what I am also a little bit concerned, because, you know, you don't want that to fall in anybody's head.
We don't want your ego project to be liability. So that it's definitely a smart thing to plan, but that means he's going to do a lot more research on how to stabilize. And that's part of the planning. The planning phase of the Eagle project takes the most time, usually because of this. What do I need to do? I don't know. I've never done this before. Well, you have to look into it. And he can talk to people. He can see if there's anyone like in the troop or another adult that is familiar with, who's an expert. My son did.
Yes.
He had some roofing on some doghouses. Like he had to shingle stuff,
Mhm.
and he had to do venting and stuff. I don't know how to do that. Well, I do, but I didn't know how. He asked his grandfather for assistance, who's used to doing that kind of thing. And you can contract an expert for your project. Like he can go and talk to someone and go, I need help. This is not my expertise. I would like your expertise. This is what I'm looking for. How would I go about doing this? And the person saying, here, I can draw the plan for you. I can show you how to do it. That's not him not doing his project. It's just like if I'm a CEO, I don't do every job in my business. I will delegate and I will hire subcontractors. And he is hiring a subcontractor with that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, I've been telling him since day one, seek
Advice?
Project expert. Somebody, if
Blair
they're
had
doing a
said-
build, seek a project expert. For sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Brendan, you're very quiet. Haven't heard from anything. Did we answer your questions?
No, I don't have no questions.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
He's still struggling with ideas.
Yeah. Now,
You
did
have
you
to
see
do something
on
meaningful.
the Facebook page, there was a post I made it the other day about 99 suggestions for Eagle projects.
Okay. I can
So-
find that and share
Yeah, it's
that.
on the Facebook page. I just posted it yesterday or the other day because
Okay.
I do some of those postings too. So when I
Yeah.
see something helpful. Okay. Well, if you don't have any other questions, I'm going to go because I've got to eat dinner still. So
Yeah, I bet.
Well, thank
But
you
I
so
will send
much
you
for
an
your
idea.
time.
yeah, no problem. I will send you that PowerPoint so that way for those who want to look at it,
Uh-huh.
they're more than welcome to, and that has the links for the emails because I know that's always a question. Who do I send it to? So I will send that to you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dawn.
Well, great. And I'm so smart for contacting you.
You are. Thank you, Kathy. You are very smart. You're
I know when I'm over my head a little, right?
Looking
That's-
for the experts in that who've done more of it. That
Yes,
you
yes.
subcontracted. So that's
Yes, I need somebody to build that roof, that little shade
a
area
tough
for us.
because you also end up with elevations on those, and scouts can't go on certain ladders and stuff. So you'll need adults in that project. And I can see there's like 4,000 things for safety. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
challenge.
yeah.
So okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thank you all, and you have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
evening. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, you too.
Bye.
Bye. So thank you, Kathy.